Out in the rain, night, my only light a candle, a million miles away, would you lay down your fire as I raised mine? Would you not kill again? And oh, when you're near me, oh, my love, oh, my joy, there's nothing ever to weary me, oh, my darling one. Good morning and welcome to Community Church of Boston. We call ourselves a Peace and Justice congregation, and we've been here since 1920 in Copley Square. And Copley Square is a mess right now because the marathon is coming through tomorrow, and there's all kinds of barricades up, and it's hard to get here, it's hard to park. So we're especially glad for all of you who have joined us here in person, as well as all of you who have been smarter to not even come near Copley Square this morning and have joined us online. We have a really amazing special program this morning. But first, as I light this candle, I remember, I light that candle in memory of my own mother who passed away last Wednesday. And I want to show you an image of Mom, which is the best image there is. It shows of what she was maybe most famous for, besides her giving, life of giving and life of compassion and love for just all kinds of people. The most thing she was known for was her laughter. And this is a picture of her as made a piece of artwork by my niece, Nicole Blank, showing her laughter and adding all these different hairdos. We just love this image. Thank you, Nicole Blank, for this image of Mom. And I say Ruth Margaret Stevens presente, which is what they say in Central America, which is where I was born and grew up, to about fallen heroes. Mother lived a beautiful, long life, 97 years, and we remember her very fondly, and I light that candle in her memory. And I go on to be so very proud to announce or to present some new friends. I did a show with them. As some of you know that I'm also a musician and a songwriter and performer. We did a show together in Lebanon, New Hampshire, and I said, this would be somebody who I really want to have my community here in Boston meet. And they're joining us from Asheville, North Carolina. And they've just been in Alaska. They're just getting around all over the place. And we're just so honored that they have been so nice as to spend some time with us this morning. Meet this lovely duo, Koof and Christine. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having us. We're going to start with the song called Breaking Cycles. Cycles are set and put in motion with the idea of continuing a certain way infinitely. We believe it's super important to break cycles because when you break a cycle, it allows growth. This is Breaking Cycles. It's been a long road, a lot of obstacles, but I found myself in the mix of it all. A little light shone, so we took that in and let it guide us through life with an abstract pen, thoughts captured. Now my mind's at work, not even realizing what this art is worth, till I struck truth and then it all got clear. My past, my present, true life lessons, family loss, friends and women, Often wonder the reason for this division. Then I realized we got different visions. So my stroll became one with those like-minded, those that inspire and push us higher. Yeah, those that inspire and push us higher. Let's break the cycles.
Patterns will not change until you may.
How will things ever change if we remain the same?
Cycles stay the same until you rise.
Let's break the cycles.
Patterns will not change until you may.
How will things ever change if we remain the same? Break the cycle. This is vital. Growth and change is part of our survival. Break the cycle. This is vital. Growth and change is part of our survival. Break the cycle. This is vital. Growth and change is part of our survival. Break the cycle. This is vital. Growth and change is part of our survival.
Break the chains, break the cycle. Thank you, Koof and Christine.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. If you look out the window of the church, which is behind us, you will see lots of runners going by. You will see lots of, what are they called? Forklifts bringing things in and getting ready for the finish line, which is a block up, and they come through here and right in front of our window. They get their medal for having finished the race, and then they're given water and sweets and treats, and then they go on a couple blocks down to meet their families and friends who are waiting for them in designated places. The entire area is kind of mayhem. You almost can't get here from there. And there's lots of traffic in every direction. And but it's a beautiful day anyway, and we are here in this auditorium together and celebrating the spring and celebrating the sun and trying to not listen to the occasional security helicopters overhead, and not paying attention to the fact that if you walked here, you'd have to go through a security perimeter to get here, and you all know the reason why that is. But anyway, we're here in Copley Square, and I want to tell you about some things that just happened last night. In spite of the situation here, we had a peña, which is a Latin American style open mic with a lot of interesting presenters that Charlie told us about. I want you all to meet Charlie Welch, who is right now our offline sound check guy and tech guru, and Amar, who is also our Zoom guru. We're trying something new today, which we figured out we couldn't do. We haven't gotten completely lined up with this service called StreamYard, which will allow us to broadcast on multiple platforms, not just Zoom and YouTube, but we'll be able to go on Facebook and Twitter and Rumble and Tumble and Twitter and Flickr and Flucker and Bluekle. All of those platforms will be at our disposal all at once. And we're excited about that. And we just have to get through a couple of technical difficulties first. I want to tell you about this event coming up right there. It's this Friday. His name is Ketu Oladuwa. He spent 5 years in Massachusetts jail, accused of a crime that he didn't commit. At that time, it was called death row because we had the death penalty in 1970 to 75. And he has gone on to be this magnificent poet. And Ketu lives in Indiana, Fort Wayne, Indiana, and is on a tour here in the Northeast. Ketu Oladua, his program is called Transitional Moments in Liminal Space, anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist poet. He will be joined by our other wonderful jazz friends who play here frequently, Willie Sordillo and Josh on saxophone and Josh Rosen on piano. That's Friday, April 19th. You can find out more about it on our website. You can buy a ticket if you'd like to support the artist, but it's also a free concert if you are not able. That's this Friday. We have a whole bunch of other art stuff coming up here, and music and poetry and storytelling. It's all in our newsletter, which it just came out. It's a brand new newsletter, and we'd be glad to send it to you in the mail, or you can access it on our website. We can also send it to you if you'd like to join our email list. Just be in touch with us. Our email address is comchurch with 2 M's @gmail.org. And it tells you about our upcoming speakers as well. Environment, Jenny Stevens comes April 21st. Labor, the Boston Labor Solidarity Committee on April 28th in preparation for May 1st, which is Labor Day in the rest of the world except the United States. We have another program by CS Films, whose director Michael Sheridan. Pashtana would be interested in this. Spent a lot of time in Afghanistan teaching people how to make documentary films, and we have a whole program of them on our YouTube channel that you can find. I will sometime send out the link to that. And this is all new immigrants to Boston. Three different filmmakers. That's May 5th. And we have Rabbi Shoshana Mira Friedman, May 12th, talking about neurodivergent journey, her own autism and her son's autism. And despite that, she has become a very eloquent rabbi and spokesperson for autistic world. And we have another one which is called Thriving Survivors of the PIC, PIC is the Prison Industrial Complex. And those are 3 wonderful friends of Community Church, Lee Underwood, Calvin Airy, and Don Wright, who will be talking about their experience surviving the PIC and going on to become incredible, compassionate contributors to society and humanity in these troubled times. And finally, May 26th, we're so proud of this. Jill Stein and Miko Peled will join us. From Apartheid to Freedom, the Pathway to a Free Palestine, talking not only about Palestine, but also about the United States electoral system and reform. Jill, of course, is the Green Party presidential candidate. So this is chock full of great stuff. And join us any Sunday and for these weeknight artistic events. So before bringing Christine and Kuf back on, I'm going to read Eduardo Galeano. He wrote, he's from Uruguay, and he wrote a history of the Americas in 3 volumes. It's called Memories of Fire. It's sort of my Bible. I spent a lot of time with it. But this one is called the Children of the Days, and it has an entry for every day of the year. And I'm just going to turn. I haven't even read this yet. Sometimes I get in trouble because sometimes they're a little bit ribald, but always and definitely irreverent, which is one of our. Maybe we should put that in our charter of what we're allowed to be, which is irreverent at Community Church. Very different place, very different church. So April 14th, It's called Grand or Just Plain Big. In the year 1588, Spain's invincible armada, then the largest fleet in the world, was defeated in a matter of hours. In the year 1628, Sweden's most powerful warship, the Vasa, also known as Invincible, sank on its maiden voyage. It never made it out of Stockholm's harbor. And on the night of this day in 1912, the world's safest and most luxurious ocean liner, humbly named Titanic, hit an iceberg and went down. This floating palace had few lifeboats, a uselessly small rudder, watchmen without binoculars, and warning bells that were never heard. That is Eduardo Galeano's April 14th submission. I love this book, and we read it every chance we get here at Community Church. I remember seeing that Swedish ship, the second one in that list of three. It's in Stockholm. There's a whole museum. They pulled it up in like 1961 or two. They pulled it up from the harbor right outside of Stockholm, where it went out for its maiden voyage. And the king, what was his name? The king had decided they needed one extra row of gunboat turrets on the top of the boat. Unfortunately, the engineers figured it out wrong in 1588 or whenever it was, went out in the harbor and just fell over. And now it's a beautiful boat, although it was badly designed, and it's in a museum in Stockholm. It's an amazing thing to watch, an amazing tribute to grandiose narcissism of the king. Kuf and Christine, this is a point that we call the musical message, where we get to hear a little bit more from you, a couple of songs, 10 minutes or so. Thank you so much for joining us, and it's just so nice to see you. You look so beautiful there. And I love that harp and your music.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This next song we're doing is called New Days, and it's basically just being thankful and grateful for each new day we see. We know that tomorrow is not promised for any of us, so with that in mind, we take full advantage of each new morning and new opportunity that's presented to us. This is New Days. Staring out the window, days move fast, but I'm taking it in slow. You know the steeds, just remain calm. Surrounding us is the storm, but it don't last long. I know the piercing sun, soon to brighten any grim look or feeling it might have been. Yeah, it's all love inside of the temple. When you enter, look up, keep a positive mental. We breed thoughts and ideas so nice, uniting, not dividing, so we grow jaw tight. Yep, I reminisce of all the beauty I've known as a youngin'. Mama showed me different ways to go. In my left ear, yep, and right out the other. But some years later I've rediscovered, uncovered those precious gems. Thank you, Mom, you knew it'd sink in, it just took some time. And now we move steady with our hearts of gold. paying what we've gained so the youth can grow. Spiritually, say la vie. Through these sounds and words, we found our grounds of peace, firmly planted, outstanding, joy to say the least. Now the comets landing, illuminating space, sharing rays of light. We travel so far with the pure divine. It comes unscheduled, but always on time, 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 and that's real.
Hello to the new day.
Hello.
Bye to the old lies. I'm just at a love pace. Here to give it away, give it away, give it.
New days. This next song, it's not exactly a song. It's about 3 minutes that we use to really just ground the energy and take a moment to breathe. We know that life moves extremely fast, and it's very important to remember to take those moments to just be and just breathe. So as we do that, we share some words that we aim to live by. Today we plant the seeds for the life we long to live. We remain open and willing to flow with life's changes. We understand those unseen curves in the road tend to pop up more often than not. So we take time to just breathe. Just breathe.
Breathing in and out, and do it all again. Breathe in and out, and do it all again. Breathe in and out, and do it all again.
We know that setting goals for the future gives us direction in the present. We also know that the present is truly a gift. So we take time to just breathe. Just breathe.
Breathe in and out, and do it all again. Breathe in and out, and do it all again.
The mind is brilliant. The body is healthy. And the spirit is tranquil. Just breathe. We are all works in progress. And that's a beautiful thing. Just breathe. And our next is magic.
Yes.
We believe this life is truly full of magic. Just be open and willing to accept it. This is magic. Magic. The pen holding slash freedom fighting, hoping to enlighten a spark of flame here. Listen close as we approach the new horizons and chalk it up. See, experimental music is what we bump and bump loud, so it vibrates your soul. There's rhythm when I stroll, poetical speech, abnormal rap song. Y'all inhale light and fly high off the vibe. Still we grounded, the 2-1 pounded. Illadelph lounging, you know the road we stroll. We kick stones as we roam and paint poems like graph on city walls. Yes, we create for a cause. Our sound, it was born in the basement from scratch. Voice and sound clash splatter like paint on the canvas. Capture the action happen. Vibrant madness, heart filled with passion. This art is where the magic happens. This art is where the magic happens. This art is where the magic happens. This art is where the magic happens, yeah. Pants sagging, thinking I knew it all. And hustle and keep a watch for the nan yelling, brother jailing, pops lit up. Had me zoning out at night, not believing in luck. I was searching for something, I ain't know what. Just knew I wasn't trying to be hometown stuck, break out, move fast. Escape quick, laced up my A6 and kept the plan basic. Think too hard, you fail before you start. I went with my God-given, follow the vision. Words over rhythm, keep it live for the listeners. Everyday writing, till my pen went inkless. Had to hustle hard, taking many jobs, knowing down the road a pot of gold I would come upon. Had to hustle hard, taking many jobs, knowing down the road a pot of gold I would come upon. This art is where the magic happens. This art is where the magic happens. Alone in the zone, we create these songs. Alone in the zone, we create these poems. Thank you.
Dean, we're not hearing you.
Oh, okay, finally. Yes, yes, there we are. Can you hear me now? Yes? Still muted? You can hear me? Okay. Thank you, Kuf and Christine. That was beautiful. And I hope that's just a prelude to some time when you can be here live in person with us to enjoy your music. This is really, truly delicious. Kuf and Christine are out of Philadelphia. Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania is where the address says. And that brings back amazing memories. I spent 3 summers in Philadelphia back 50 years ago, working in a factory bakery, and going out to the main point every weekend, which was a legendary club. I'm sure it doesn't exist anymore, but I saw Bruce Springsteen there when he was just getting started, and many others. It was really a wonderful, formative thing to do that. I can't believe I kept that job every summer, even though I was going to college in California. Anyway, enough of that. Another person that we'd really like to join us live in person is our speaker today, and her name is Pashtana Durrani. I hope I said it right with a rolled R. And this is just really, it's an incredible honor to have Pashtana with us this morning. She's out at Wellesley. I'm going to read from this book, Last to Eat, Last to Learn, the description of Pashtana. Pashtana Durrani is an Afghan education activist, founder of NGO LEARN, a Malala Fund education champion, a laureate of the United Nations Youth Activist Summit, and Amnesty International Global Youth Collective representative. After the fall of Kandahar and later the rest of the country, Pashtana became a face of the disappearing rights of women in Afghanistan, appearing regularly in national press and on all major U.S. networks. Currently, she is visiting fellow at Wellesley Centers for Women and continues her work to support the education and health of Afghan women and girls. Learn more at learnafghan.org. This is just an amazing book. Pashtana is 27 years old. I have a son who's 27 years old, born in privilege and in every possibility. Pashtana was born in a refugee camp and has come to be, someone I compare again with Malala and with Greta Thunberg, just a remarkable young prophetic voice. We welcome you, Pashtana, to our humble community Church of Boston, and we're just so honored that you can join us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so humbled and honored. Thank you.
Take it away.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. First of all, I wanted to thank for the amazing music that was presented this morning. It really calmed me. I struggle a lot with social anxiety, so that was really nice. Thank you so much for that. And I'm sorry I was not there in person. I planned to be there in person, but then the marathon happened and I didn't know that it is such a big deal. It almost reminded me of the New Year's that happens in our country. We almost do the same thing. We roadblock. We used to do the same thing, and we would go to the north of the country where we go for this flag bearing ceremony that is done on spring, and it's done on March 22nd, and it's called Nowruz, where we welcome the spring into our lives and we celebrate spring. And apart from that, we celebrate the new year, and it sort of is start of a new beginning. So it almost reminded me of that. But apart from that, thank you so much for having me. I am going to focus a little more on my story as a person who grew up in a refugee camp, but also as you said, Dean, privilege, about your son. But the funny thing is, I also was born in privilege. Although I was born in refugee camp, I did grow up in a family that loved me and supported me. And for me, when I look at it now, I do find it as a privilege, given that the girls and the people that I work with, I most of the time see that love and support and community is something that is really seen as a privilege, especially when it comes to women. So I'm going to start with a little about my childhood. I was born in a refugee camp. I was raised in a refugee camp. My father was a tribal chief of the community and the tribe that I am from. And the first thing that we used to do every year with the start of the spring was to do community checks, to check on people who were doing well and who were not doing well, and what is it that we could do for them to make it better. But also, it would also start the start of the year for the girls that my father had, for the girls' school that my father had founded. In the 1990s, when my family moved to this tribal village, my father became the tribal chief after my grandfather's passing. And once he passed away, the one thing that we saw was with more refugees coming into the country, the refugees in our community were left out. They were the last to be seen. They were the last to be served. And there were bigger camps that were served and they were prioritized. And the one thing that I think my father saw was the fact that we were not given the privilege of a school. So in the 1990s, I think after I was born, after 1997, this became apparent where the UN would open a school in a nearby village, but will leave out our village because it was so nearby, they would expect us to walk to that school. But my father, being my father, he decided that he's going to open a school in his house for the girls in our community because nobody could walk to the next village, given A, first, they were refugees, they were being discriminated against, and B, they didn't feel safe enough to go and walk to those communities. So in one day, my father opened a school. He came up with this idea of, oh, we're going to teach girls in our own house. And my mother and my aunt became the teachers. My mother would teach math, and my aunt would teach all the linguistics and history and geography, whatever they could. They had a committee of old women who would go around the village and ask people to send their daughters to school. So the reason I started with this is, for me, it's very important to make sure that the world knows that how much Afghan people and Afghans, despite whatever their circumstances are, they value education, especially girls' education. And that's what my father did. And that's what all the fathers did. That's what the mothers did. And when they sent their daughters to school, I remember being young and being this a little spiteful kid who was very entitled, and the girls would come in winters. So we have these almost Massachusetts like winters in the refugee camp where it would snow so much that you had to close everything for 3 months. And the girls would show up to school in those months, and I would go to their door and I would tell them, I was like, you do know that the school is not on, right? Like, you shouldn't come now. Like, just come when the new year starts, like in March, you know? And they would be so nice to me, and they would be like, okay, but they would still show up the next day and still ask, oh, is the school open? And that was something I grew up with. So up until the age of 16, my idea of accessing education was, oh, if you don't have education, you just open school and people just show up and you have a supportive community. And after 16, I was open to this, I was introduced to this idea of, oh, that's not necessarily true. I decided to go back to Afghanistan, given that we were refugees and being discriminated against in a neighboring country was too much for me to handle. I decided that I wanted to go back home. When I went back home, the first day I crossed the border with my family, and I was scheduled to meet the ex-president of Afghanistan in a conference, and I was supposed to be part of that conference, to present at that conference. And I meet my own family for the first time in years. And mind you, this is an internally displaced persons camp. So my family is from the Maruf district of Kandahar, which was held hostage by the Taliban. So the people, 400 families, had to move to another district where they felt safe, given that their sons were serving with the American allies. So I meet my own family within this internally displaced camp. I meet my own cousins for the first time. And the first thing we talk about families, we talk about traditions, we talk about how kids are born, or who was born where, what is happening, what is new, what is up. But apart from all of that, they ask me, what are you doing here? And I tell them, I'm here to meet the ex-president of Afghanistan, and I'm presenting at this paper. And they are all shocked. They're like, oh my God, that's amazing. Good for you. But I meet my own cousin first time, and she tells me, she's like, so you're going to Kabul. And I'm like, yes, I am. And this is in a country where taking a flight, meeting the ex-president of Afghanistan, getting an education is seen as a sense of privilege. So when I'm talking to her, she gets extremely excited, but she doesn't say anything much. The night passes. The next morning, I talk to her and we're talking, and she's like, you know what? I need to share something with you. And I'm like, yeah, what? And she tells me that, oh, do you know that I learn from my nephew every Thursdays and Fridays when he comes from the city of Kandahar? I learn from him and then he goes back and I repeat everything that he has taught me until the next time he comes back. And I'm like, what do you mean? So we don't have school here? Like we're in a safe district. The economy is good, the business is good. How come we don't have schools here? And she brings this notebook back, which is still up on my social media handles, and she has written on it, I want the government to open our schools. And that was the first time I was introduced to the idea of illiteracy and not being able to access education for reasons that were um, out of human control, but also were human imposed in many ways, because it was out of corruption. It was out of the fact that nobody wanted development for that specific space or that tribe. So I talked to her and I'm still trying to understand what is the politics of it. And she tells me, yeah, I do this, I learn every day. And given that I want to be a doctor and my mother has passed away from cancer, I would really want to do something with my life, but I don't know how, and I don't know how I will get certified. I'm like, you know what? I have got it, because me being the confident me, I was like, I have got it. Just let me handle this. And I go back to my dad and I talk to him. He's like, we can talk about this. So on my way back, I keep on reflecting on this and the fact that I made this promise to her that, oh, we're going to figure this out. So given that I presented in Kabul and I got an internship and I stayed in Kabul for the next whole year, the one thing that I did was reach out to my cousin, make sure that I sent her aids, I sent her learning materials. We got her up to speed to at least a grade 7 level. We get her fully prepped for grade 7. I talked to the family. There's a lot of disagreements, but at the end of the day, they all moved to the city. And once they have moved to the city, excuse me, they're able to access the girls' school, which is almost like 100 kilometers away from where they are coming. So they move 100 kilometers, they get this new house, they get her into the school. And after a week, she calls me, she's like, I don't want to go to the school. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't want to go to the school? How dare you, you know? And she's like, you won't understand. And I'm like, oh, make me understand. So I get so furious and I come back from Kabul to Kandahar and I go to her school. I'm like, what do you mean you don't want to go to the school? So, and then that's where I realized when I talked to the teachers told me that the schools are not equipped enough to get children from tribal or rural areas where they have been learning on their own, given that the students don't know how to learn within 45 minutes and then switch to a new subject, how to take exams, how to work under pressure, how to work with other students. And I get that idea, but I'm like, why don't you know? Because again, I'm entitled to think that everything should have an answer, you know? So I talked to her, but then at the same time, given that I was from a rural background, a tribal background, I go back to my family and I talk to other people in my community and family. And the first thing I see is all the girls are facing the same issue. All the girls are not going to school for this one reason. And this is where I go to my father after a lot of research, a few months of research. And I'm like, listen, you need to give me money. I need to register for this nonprofit and I need to get something on board that fills this gap. And my father, without thinking twice, he gave me $2,000 as a loan that I never paid back, by the way. And I started Learn. And I now call it fund. I'm like, he funded the first time when I started, but he funded for the first 2 years. So I started Learn, and the first thing that we did was make content, make all this sort of learning material that was going to get girls educated in a way where they can access public schooling, but also be able to work with other students, are also able to work on their own if they're not able to go to public schooling, and if their families moved away from the city. And I started advocating at the age of 19. And I mean, before that, I was, of course, working in that space. But at the age of 19, I officially became this person who was actively working on this. I did have a lot of backing when it came to community. I had a whole community, but all that privilege came because of my father and his name and how he believed in it. So people believed in it. But then at the same time, every time I would go to Kabul, the first thing I would expect people to do is ask me, are you crazy? Do you think you're going to change the country? We don't have electricity. We don't have internet. And you think you're going to just come and change the whole system? And it would make me furious. But also at the same time, there are a lot of questions around the fact that we were not as forward thinking as people in Kabul because we were from the rural tribal regions of Afghanistan. We were mountain people for them. The fact that our districts were held hostage by the Taliban, we were seen as compliant people who didn't oppose the Taliban as much. But given that we were held hostage, there was not a lot we could do. And last but not the least, our sacrifices were forgotten. Sacrifices like 2,300 men that enlisted in the military and police from my tribe were all gone, and they were murdered in the fights, and nobody talked about it, and nobody even acknowledged that. So the orphans, the widows, all fell on our shoulders. And that's where I realized that we have to talk about things that people are uncomfortable with. So Learn was started out of spite, out of all this being furious, all being mad at the world and them not figuring out how to change it. And yeah, I think now a few years later, now that the country has changed and evolved and fallen in many ways, it sort of reminds me of how we have done a lot of things that makes me happy. But going back to what we did back then, within the first 2 years, we were able to reach around 7,000 tribal students that we got them into public schools. We were able to work with 18 public schools to get more and more students into those spaces, but also train teachers to work with those students. Apart from that, we trained students. We got a lot of women and young girls around community building when it comes to girls' education. And when I was doing that, the one thing that made more sense for me was piloting this in many rural communities, but also in public schools. And when I did that, the first story that I don't usually share, but I think is very important given that we were talking about my book. I'm going to read this excerpt from my book, if that's okay with you, Dean. So this is the time where we are not done with 18 schools. This is very first time, and we're working with this nonprofit in Canada who's helping us get these softwares that is offline, so you don't need internet for it, and it's in these plastic tablets that you don't need a lot of maintenance for. And they sent us these tablets. We work with a school, we piloted in that school, and after a few months, I go back to that school to check up on students and how they're doing. And this is where the story gets a little interesting, I think for me, at least. The principal appeared glad to see me, but I dismissed it as him just trying to be pleasant. He appeared to be smart and be clearly cared for me and his students. But I wasn't going to snap out of my bad mood that quickly. I was committed. I'm persistent that way. He talked about how much he had been struggling with developing the girls' imagination. It is possibly the biggest issue we face as educators here. I nodded. I knew how hard it must be to shape minds already defeated by life. The girls were taught to look down at their own shuffling feet from the moment they were born. Developing imagination requires looking up. Encouraging it requires a concrete, detailed map, not platitudes and slogans about what's achievable. The principal walked with me through the government curriculum they'd been following written in English. He complained about the quality of teachers, ongoing struggles in Afghanistan government, schools, and only required qualified teachers beginning with the sixth grade. Before that, at most crucial time in kids' lives, they are mostly taught by education students who have yet to graduate. With the generic conversation now out of the way, he suddenly said he had never seen such rapid progress as he did with my tablets. They evened the playing field, you know. They encouraged creativity in a way I haven't seen before. As I still failed to sufficiently perk up, he suggested I should meet one of the girls and have her talk about it instead of him. Fine. As we walked through a classroom, it was clear that the school wasn't swimming in funds. The paint was peeling off the stained walls, and the halls were full of slipshod repairs that had seen better days. Even years ago, when the improvements were undertaken, they were clearly only meant to be temporary. When we walked into the room, the principal pointed to a girl sitting in a front row. She had beautiful hazel eyes and smiled shyly when the principal addressed her. Her eyes were bright and shining. It was clear that she was happy. Seeing her, my mood began to shift. The principal and I sat down, and the teacher showed us some of the girl's writing and pictures that she had drawn. The girl sat up straight. The girl sat up straighter and beamed. She was obviously proud of her work, and I was too. I invited the girl to sit next to me and tell me about herself. She told me that she wanted to become a painter. She said she would draw some pictures to give me to the next time I visited. I smiled and sat there imagining how great it would be in 20 years when a little girl would be an illustrator, a graphic designer, or an educator. The day ignited a hope in the future of Afghanistan that I protect to this day. I really started paying attention in earnest once she started talking about school. She lit up. She spoke with confidence I had never felt, not at that age, not even now. She answered my every question, perfectly possessed. My back pain was forgotten. The bad mood that came with it, her strain somehow faded. She told me where she lived, mentioning one of the poorest parts of Kandahar without electricity or sewage, and talked about how much she liked going to school. I love school. You get smarter here. And this is the excerpt from the book that I really wanted to share today. I think it's very important for me that education is seen with the importance that it brings to someone's life, although it has always been overlooked, given that children are always the other, in at least in my country, where they are always the last to be picked up to get educated. And that's what LEARN did for almost up until 2021. We went to schools, we trained teachers, we worked with students, and that was my life, and I loved it. I enjoyed it. I went to school myself, I got educated myself, but I also continued working with teachers and students and community builders and elders and religious leaders, anyone and everyone who was open to the idea of girls' education, even those who were not. Because at the end of the day, they respected the idea of somebody working for it so tirelessly, not me, but my whole team. But in 2021, Afghanistan fell, and with the fall of Afghanistan's republic or the government, the first thing that we have faced since then is the Taliban in power, or the regime in power right now, issues a decree every week that bans women from something very normal. Going to school was banned first, going to colleges was banned second, going to any graduate studies was banned, going to public parks is banned, running a salon is banned, going to a salon is banned, going to a public park is banned. And even yesterday, I was seeing that using Facebook is banned. And that's what they have done in the past 2.5 years, is to ban women from basically existing and reducing them to being just reproductive systems. But the one thing, I think the first month of Afghanistan when it fell, I felt broken. The person that you see today, I had to work a lot to be here. I was broken, I was lost, and given that I had lost my father a year before that to COVID, it was really hard for me to understand that if it was worth the fight, like if it was worth the fight that I was fighting. But after a month of reflection, after a month of in hiding, I realized, I was like, you know what? We have the resources, given that Afghanistan has fallen and we have nothing else to do anyways. Let's just start an underground school. And I remember thinking to myself, I texted teachers and students from our public schools. And I remember thinking, I was like, even if nobody shows up today, it's totally fine, because I would understand, given that the whole country has fallen. And I saw, as I walked into that underground basement, I saw all my teachers, and I saw around 100 students who showed up. And that was the first time that we started our first underground school. Today, LEARN has almost around 4 schools that we are running in 4 different zones of Afghanistan. We hope to at least launch 30 more schools within Afghanistan by the end of next year. And we hope to educate around 3,400 leaders within the same spaces from grade 7 to grade 12, get them into colleges, and make sure these girls are the future of Afghanistan, a better one than which we have right now. And we do the same thing with healthcare. We provide healthcare access to all the women who are unable to access it otherwise, given that the healthcare system has paralyzed. And that's pretty much what my day is consumed. I was forced into political exile in 2021 November after launching the first school. And since then, I work at Wellesley College and I work to make sure that these schools are sustained. We expand to other provinces. All my team is safe and my family is safe. And apart from that, most importantly, the belief that I had in education and in Afghanistan when I was 7 continues to be the same. So that's pretty much it about me. If there's anything that you would want to ask, or Dean, if there's any follow-up that you might have, just let me know. Yeah. Thank you.
Pashtana Durrani. Thank you so much. We're going to hear one last song from Kuf and Christine, and then we will open it up for a question and answer and reflection from the audience back and forth. But this is the moment that we also get to tell you a couple of things. First, that we depend on your magnanimous beneficence to continue this experiment called Community Church of Boston, which has been an experiment for 104 years in education, radical thinking. We are hungry to learn from many different voices and also be a spiritual and a community of support, community of faith, whatever it is that you call that. And so I just want to tell you that we need your support. There is a website, communitychurchofboston.org, where you can go and find a way to contribute through PayPal or through a credit card. Even better, to become a recurring contributor. I was about to say I won't say it. Yes, and we also have a basket right here for those of you who are in the audience today with us. So that's one thing. Another thing is, if you are really interested in finding out more about who we are and what we do, feel free to be in touch. I'd love to have a conversation with you, tell you more about us, about our 5-story building here in Copley Square, about our history, which is in the archives, and about our other tenants, which do things that are simpatico with us, and about our program and other things that we're involved in, other tenants that use this space, such as Muslims for Progressive Values, Jewish Voice for Peace, Extinction Rebellion. The list goes on. Democratic Socialists of America, Palestine Committee. It's really a space for organizing and for positive social change. So thank you for being generous to us, especially in our moment of need, which is that our first floor, which is our main sustenance, is presently a vacant restaurant, and we're well on the way to having a new tenant down there. But in the meantime, we're in pretty tough shape. But I've got to stop talking about that because Kuf and Christine are here, and we thank you again for joining us, and hope to have you in person. And how about one last song? Yeah.
Cool. Sounds good. Thank you for having us. Also, thank you for sharing your story. Absolutely amazing, beautiful, super inspiring. And yeah, thank you so much. Education is super important. To our last song, this song is called Be Free. And it's basically just inviting everyone to be free, physically and mentally. If there's anything that has you feeling like you're stuck or tied down or held back, we invite you to cut those strings. Could be a job, could be a relationship, could be many things. We believe the most important thing in life, though, is happiness and finding and capturing that. So whatever's gonna free you up to do that, we invite you. This is Be Free. Be free. Speaking freedom, releasing those locked cells. Some choose the green, exhale when all else fail. I'm seeing peace through this journey of change. Experience is priceless, shows us new things, but so needed. Stay humble, believe me. Just searching and reading, I'm absorbing the teachings. Growing every day and passing jewels for free. Get it, live it, love it. The blessing is so real. Trapped between these thoughts, running laps on hope's wheel. Knowing that tomorrow holds those dope thrills. Pushing here to Brooklyn. Low valleys and big field. No matter where you live, your dreams a big deal. Be free. Waking up early, fresh breeze in the room's lit. Glares out the window from the rays and it's so sick. Moment to be grateful for the fruits of this planet. Every day's another blessing, a lesson to cherish. At ease, it's peace how the clouds be spinning. Rotation is the motto, take a minute to listen. Every circle meant another cycle complete. The cycle it breed knowledge if you travel and see. Absorbing wisdom, teach the children. Respect the women, they hold the wound that carries life. Divine and so healing, defining our purpose. Breaking free, no ceiling. Open atmosphere and amazing feeling. Be free. We operate on these frequencies so we can be free. We operate on these frequencies so we can be free. Some love they cause jewels and wealth. Best love we found was love for self. If y'all feeling good and rocking with us, when I say self, you say love, self,
Love,
self,
love,
self,
love,
self,
love,
self.
love.
Thank you.
Unmute. Oh, I'm already unmuted. Kuf and Christine, thank you for transporting us into a different realm of beauty and elegance this morning. And we hope to see you again soon. I want to talk about real quickly cultural music, poetry events coming up. I already talked about Ketu Oladua this Friday. We also have May 5th, Adam Ezra. He's the leader of a really hardworking indie band that's all over New England all the time. Adam is going to be here to do a solo performance. It's already almost sold out. And I'm going to do a little short set in front of him. And that's May 5th. We also have on May 16th, Maura Smiley. You cannot believe what a vocal stylist Maura is, and she is accompanied by Shelter Music, which is a string quartet, part of Shelter Music, whose task is to bring music to prisons, shut-in institutions, hospitals, homeless shelters. That's going to be a really wonderful program, May 16th. It's a Thursday with Maura Smiley, longtime friend and remarkable vocalist and leader of many different ensembles and groups. Then May 18th, we have the legendary Betsy Rose. Saturday, May 18th. Betsy used to live in Boston, where she was at the head of what they at the forefront of what they call the women's music movement in the late 70s, early 80s, before we lost her to Berkeley, California. But she's coming back. She wrote that great song that's called "We May Have Come Here on Different Ships, but We're in the Same Boat Now." You remember that one? Betsy Rose, May 18th. And then finally, on Friday, May 24th, it's this guy, and you might recognize him. That would be yours truly. And I'm having a concert here that's completely a benefit for Community Church of Boston. It's my 70th birthday, and I hope you can join us. It's all to raise funds for this church in our hour of need. So that's what's going on here at the church. We're just very proud of our upcoming 2 months of programming. And we go back to Pashtana. This is a moment of where it's a difficult thing, because my political awareness came in the 80s in opposition to the US's role in Central America. I would say that you could call this an anti-imperialist church. Our minister railed against South Korea, against Vietnam. His name was Donald Lothrop, and his activism against Vietnam was remarkable and legendary, and as was that of this church. In the 80s, it was about Central America, and then about Iraq, and about Afghanistan. And this is an anti-imperialist political place that I come from. And there's Afghanistan, which they call the graveyard of empire. The Ottomans, the British, the Soviets, the Americans. Look what happened. It was just like we left there with our tails between our legs, just like we did Vietnam. And your story, your remarkable story, is one that had an opening while the Americans were there, and then it was immediately shut right down. And here you are in exile, living the life of a gypsy, and my heart goes out to you for that, just like that of the Palestinians and that of so many displaced people throughout the world. And I just want to know how that feels, and how more about what seems like an impossible task of educating girls in a place that absolutely doesn't want it to happen.
Thank you so much for asking that question. I think the one thing, thank you so much for bringing the anti-imperialist point too. I think the one thing we tend to forget when it comes to Afghanistan is we are people who don't like people invading our privacy. We have never liked it. And as an Afghan woman, I am a sort of person who would always defend that. You cannot just come and invade us just because you had security breaches. And also, we were not involved in that. There was not a single Afghan that was involved in what happened in the US. And yet our people were bombed, our people were taken, our people have suffered because of that. But at the same time, when I reflect on it, one thing that I also get very irritated by is the fact that when people ask us is, what about these hard-earned human rights that were introduced to us by the Western allies? If somebody focuses on researches about Afghanistan, Afghanistan had women rights and women voting rights in 1920s. Our constitution of the 1920, our king, introduced women right and women being equal to men in 1920, where in the West women were still fighting for human rights and they were still marching out. And I'm not saying this to compare it or spite it. I'm just saying that it does leave this fact that people know so little about Afghanistan, and the only lens we are seen through is, oh, we are people who fight all the time, you know. But we were much more than that. We're one of the ancient countries in the whole world, you know. We're one of the 10 ancient countries in the whole world. We have a 3,000-old empire history that focuses on civilization, education, and most importantly, female leaders. 3,000 years ago, we had a female leader, a queen, who had built the minarets of Herat citadel, where people would come from all around Central Asia to get educated in the cradle of civilization, which was called Herat, the city of education or the city of universities back in the day. So education is not new to us, nor is women leadership or women rights. The only thing that was changed, that was used, and that was weaponized was our books, our religion, and a lot of propaganda went into that in the 80s and the 90s. I don't know how many of you would know, but University of Nebraska was the university that actually actively changed our primary level books from Alif to Anar, which would roughly translate into, let's say in your books, A for apple, and it was changed to A to Allah, Jim for jihad, M for mujahid, Shin for shaheed, which all of them is jihad is the holy war, martyr, shaheed is martyr, which is the person who dies when they're fighting infidels. And this was what was taught to me, by the way, in refugee camp, because those were the only books we got. And this is the books that all the children after 80s got when they were Afghan descendants. And the reason I'm sharing this is that it is very important for people to know how much propaganda was used in Afghanistan to make us be forced in the place where we are today, you know. But apart from that, going back to my own life, I have always struggled with the idea of being an Afghan woman, where I come from this amazing history of 100 years ago. We have accepted women to be these voting leaders, to be ministers, to be education minister. 100 years ago, we had a women education minister. And today my country doesn't even allow me to walk on the street. Today my country thinks I am a national threat. So it's hard. There are times where on people on weekends, they enjoy their weekends, they go out, they go to Newberry Street, and I'm stuck at home because I have to work with my team on Saturdays and Sundays to figure out a new plan against a new decree or ban that has been passed away. The first year I came to the US, I went through a lot of depression because of one thing. I missed my family and home, and I couldn't see them and meet them. So there's a lot of personal and work-related things, because not people who love their country would want to end up in another country out of just because they want to. The only reason is because there is a lot of safety involved. I didn't want to leave. If you watch some of my videos, I keep on complaining about the fact that I have the right to my country as much as any other person. But I remember talking to my friend, and this was right before when a girl was kidnapped because she had the same similar stance, and her brothers were taken away. And she was forced to say on BBC that Taliban are good people. And she stands by them. And that made me realize how hard it would be for me to do that, you know, when I'm forced to say that. And my friend said, you have to leave now. Nobody's taking the right of this country away from you, but it's not safe right now. Leave now. You can do much more if you're safe, and nobody can force your thoughts and ideas and force you to say stuff on camera. And that was one of the reasons that I had to leave. But nobody who is committed to their country would want to go into exile or end up in this country, like, in any other country, not even in the US, but any other country. So yeah, reflecting back, Afghanistan is so much more. It has rich history, rich culture, rich traditions. Afghanistan is also known for its women and feminist literature, which means women in 3,000-year-old, where there was a Gawhar Shah Begum, 300 years ago, where there was a woman fighter who fought against the British when they were invading us, and 100 years ago, where we had a first education minister, and even in the 1960s, where we had Ministry of Health, which was led by a woman. So yeah, that is Afghanistan that I hope somebody might find. Yeah.
Let's see. So I think the message I hear is that the Taliban era is merely a blip on the screen of a bigger picture
Oh yeah.
where this too shall pass,
Yes.
and a new day is coming, and you are the beacon of hope for that to break through. There's this line that I always use from a song by Bruce Cockburn, the Canadian social rocker, and the line is, "Got to kick at the darkness till it bleeds daylight."
Yes.
And sometimes that's what it feels like, and everybody knows so much that that's what it feels like in Gaza right now, and the same for you in Afghanistan. Well, I have lots of more questions, but I want to see if there's anybody else who would like to join us. Oh, we have Alin. Let me make sure that we have sound here. Can that be heard?
Yes, I can hear.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to give the microphone to Alin. You won't be able to see him in the camera, but here. Thank you for your insightful presentation. It touched my heart because it took me back to the memories of my grandmother. I am from Costa Rica, and she was the first woman to become a professional in my country.
We can barely hear you.
Now, can you hear me? Yeah. Just talk right into it. She was the first woman to become a professional in 1912, more than 100 years ago. And it touched my heart because she went through a lot of heartaches and opposition from religious and political authorities, and she exiled in Mexico. And so for more than 50 years, she was erased from history in a democratic country. It is until now that I see some stamps and some homage to her. And when I was coming to this church, I did some research because I was remembering the great Muslim thinker and philosopher and Dr. Averroes. And Averroes is well respected. And he insisted in the ideas that women and men should be equal in rights. So that's the one thing I want to rescue about the Muslim tradition. Those thinkers, males and females, who insisted in the importance of education. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have we got anybody else either online or in the audience who would like to? Oh, yes, there we go. Virginia, welcome.
I think about a number of things about your talk, but one, like your state independent people are not privacy. And privacy is very important. And the other, your statement about girls, women being taught to look down rather than to look up. And the difficulty of imagination. And I'm wondering if people do what they need to do to survive in terms of complying with Taliban. Most probably, people be very different. And what there might be available for the possibility of imagination.
Any response to that, Pashtana?
Can you repeat the last end of it? I couldn't hear the whole of it. I think it was more about people do what they have to do to survive, and then I couldn't hear the last end of it.
Sorry, you couldn't hear. I was thinking about many things that you said, but two that struck me particularly. One that that Afghan people, like other people, do not want their privacy invaded and have a strong feeling about privacy. And then also that girls culturally and women are taught to look down and not to look up. And kind of the impossible leap to imagination. And I'm wondering what might give people hope there and possibility for imagination. And also if part of your being able to have an underground school is this phenomena of people maybe outwardly showing compliance to Taliban to survive, but inwardly doing something else.
But that's a great question. Thank you so much for sharing and asking that. I completely agree with you. I think in the past 40 years, the country have gone through so much turmoil that we have all gone into this sort of, I still work with my therapist and she tells me I'm very much into a flight or fight mode all the time. And I think my whole country is in flight and fight mode. And when you're in flight and fight mode, the one thing that first shut down is you cannot think beyond what you're right now surviving. And I completely agree with you is that that's what I do, or many people in my shoes and people like us are doing right now. We're just thinking to make it through the week and be alive and be well and be grateful about that. And most of the time that comes with the fact that a lot of young children, girls and boys, are told, just keep your head down, don't talk a lot, don't think about a lot of other stuff, just be quiet to be safe. But then at the same time, it's very hard to do that after 40 years of being in constant fight or flight mode. So the one thing that they do now is, as Afghan people, sure, we are under the Taliban control, but at the same time, there are 400 fathers, 400 mothers who send all their daughters to school, and we surveyed our parents. So these are the number of people who believe that their girls should be in school right now, although they don't talk about it, they don't show it anywhere, because they're also surviving the regime and they don't want to be an example. But at the same time, they drop their daughters to school, they pick them from those schools, they drop the teachers to school, they pick those from school, they support the school, they talk about helping with resources, and they have done that in the past. So yes, outwardly, there is no way around it. I am not a person who would sort of say, oh no, we need to fight them. we have been fighting for such a long time that we don't even remember how it is to be at peace, to feel safe, to be able to just go out and take a walk without feeling paranoid. So for us, sure, right now we are more of like, okay, we're gonna be doing what we believe is right, which is getting access to education, but also making sure that nobody pays for something that is such a basic human right by being an example in current regime. So I understand what you are asking, and I completely relate to that. And yes, people are just surviving, but at the same time, they want the best for their children. As Dean said, that it's just one of those darker chapters that are going to pass away, and hopefully after that, we'll have educated people who will take over the country. Yeah.
I would like to say that the education of women is the future of the planet,
Yes.
and that all over the world, not only the solution to so many problems like the population issue is about the education of women and girls. I especially am in such admiration of your work because of my own little efforts in Central America with finding money for scholarships for kids. There's about a dozen of them in some villages that I'm just so proud. Families in El Salvador of children of refugees whose villages were destroyed during the war and who were off in exile in a different country, came back, and these were children of subsistence farmers who were among the dozen. There's a doctor, there's a dentist, there's 3 teachers, there's other young people working in other areas. It's hope for the future. And I want to ask you, I don't know if you're completely at liberty to talk about this, but are you able to import tablets into Afghanistan? And ask you about another thing that we just discovered in one village was that there was a church that donated a Starlink system to a village that had no internet, and we are it's been there for about 6 months, and we are in the course of deploying it and figuring out the good and the bad about having a Starlink system in a village. It costs like cost a couple of thousand to get it in there, and about $50-$60 a month, and you have really solid, good internet anywhere on the planet because of this scumbucket named Elon Musk's company that deploys satellites that circle the planet and allow that to happen. But it definitely has some positives and some negatives too. Like kids that are just basically going to playing games all the time, and they're trying to figure out how to police that. And I'm sure there's some free speech advocates who say you shouldn't police that. It's really
I
on
may be
and
one
on.
of
But
those.
go ahead, please.
I may be one of those who are like, let them play games, but like not unhealthy, but sure, still do. I think a few things. Yes, we do import tablets and laptops currently, which, for the lack of better words, we still have to smuggle them through different regions because they cannot be seen as something that could be used to educate or be in such a high quantity of possession. So we do have routes that we use to get them into country safely. Coming to your second thing, given that I have signed an NDA, I can and cannot confirm that we might be using a similar infrastructure of internet that is helping girls in Afghanistan in 2 different regions since November to access better internet. And we were able to do it because of generous donations of another group from All True. These are women who served in Afghanistan, which is, of course, for you, for your group, it would be anti-imperialist. But then again, these are women who worked in Afghanistan, who served in Afghanistan, and Afghanistan touched them so much that they still continue to believe in Afghanistan. And it was made possible because of that. So this critical infrastructure was sent to Afghanistan. It is active in Afghanistan. And this is the reason that right now our girls are able to get access to ESL level education in California, are able to write journalism blogs from Oxford School of Journalism in partnership with Oxford School of Journalism, and are able to access internet for all of in its all glory. So yeah, we have been experimenting with all of that. Yeah.
Yes. Well, we have just been served a beautiful luncheon by our cook, Luis Guzman. That's part of what we do here. And we'd like to conclude by just enormous applause and thanks to Kuf Knotts and Christine Elise, who have joined us this morning. And there they are. And it's just such a beautiful sight to see the two of you making beautiful elegance with such grace and style. And we hope that you will come see us soon here in Boston in person. In person is always, the real thing is always much better than these little rectangles on a laptop. And Pashtana, the same thing to you. Thank you for joining us and for bringing us into your world a little bit. Last to Eat, Last to Learn is Pashtana's book. I hope you will come in person so we can get you to sign it for our library copy here at the church. If somebody wants to borrow it, you can borrow it after I'm done reading it. And so on that note, I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. Find out about our upcoming programs. Thank you, Amar, for our education on virtual stuff and our ability to do this. Soon we will be on multiple platforms. We hope and that will bring us to even more people. Stay in touch, get on our mailing list. We also do other programs that are not listed on our newsletter. Dennis Kucinich was here last Wednesday, magnificent political voice from Cleveland, Ohio, ran for president numerous times, is now running for representative. All sorts of just wonderful programming that we have here at the church. And on that note, we say over and out, and thank you everybody for joining us, and be well, and have a good week, make good progress, and think good thoughts.